But no, thanks so much for coming today. Those of you who don't know me, I'm Steph and I'm a senior consultant at Creative Natives. I've been with Creative Natives for nearly 3 years now, and I actually started my career in PR and marketing. So yeah, I definitely understand what it's like to finish uni and try and find an internship and thinking about, your career goals and what you want to do. So yeah, I just thought it'd be a good chance today to kind of chat with you all about obviously internships and your career and what you can do, I guess, to get your foot in the door in terms of building a personal brand and how to turn internships into a job, and just any questions that you might have along the way as well. So if you guys maybe want to just shoot a message in the question box, but just to get an understanding of what kind of industry you're all looking to get into. I'll get Leah to read out.
Yeah, we have social media and PR.
Nice.
Your specialty.
Yes, yeah.
PR and marketing as well.
Yep.
Awesome.
Cool.
Advertising and design. Graphic design.
Nice.
Yeah.
And just to get a sense as well about where you're at, are you currently studying or maybe recently finished your studies, or have you graduated and you're looking, and have you done an internship before as well?
So many questions.
So many questions, sorry, but I guess where are you at in your internship or graduate career?
All right, so we have one, a recent graduate, have done 2 internships during uni.
Nice.
Awesome. I'm in my second year of job hunting and have done unpaid internships. A freelance graphic designer with 8 years of experience. Amazing.
Nice.
Awaiting graduate ceremony. Congratulations.
Exciting.
Have completed 1 full internship, and the second internship unfortunately had to be cut short, which is a little sad.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks like there's a good
mix.
variety.
Awesome. Okay, so let's just pull up. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
So yeah, basically a bit of an agenda of what we'll go through. So I guess different ways and how you can stand out from the crowd. I know obviously when you finish uni, I've been there. It's there's kind of a sense of the unknown, and I particularly found when I finished, I went to RMIT. I studied Bachelor of Communications and Public Relations. So it was very much, obviously we did internships at uni, but yeah, I feel like you don't really get a sense of what it's actually like to be in the industry until you finish uni, and you might start an internship and then it might give you an idea of what you want to do after that. But it's very much kind of who's there to help me, and you feel like you're kind of out on your own. So yeah, I guess the purpose of this is just to kind of give you some tips on what you actually can do to stand out from the crowd and hopefully land your first job. So yeah, just to kind of some things we'll cover is obviously personal branding piece, internships, applications, the interview process, your portfolio if that's relevant, which I think it should be for everyone, and also just general networking as well. So personal brand. So, well, I'm sure you might have had an understanding of this at uni, but would anyone like to share what they think a personal brand is, or an example of that?
And feel free to come off mute if you prefer to speak rather than type. Why don't we move on, and then
don't worry. It's always you feel like you're at school, don't you? You don't want to be the first one to answer it. Personal branding. So I think go to the next slide. So essentially, if we want to define it, it's personal brand is the way you define and promote what you stand for as an individual. And I think particularly for creatives and anyone in the general communications industry, it's really important to build your personal brand, especially if you're client facing in your role. And also for students and grads, it can actually help you kind of get ahead in your career. A lot of the time when you apply for an internship, if you've got examples of how you've already built your personal brand before you even come into the workforce, it's really impressive. And it also just helps you stand out from the crowd. I don't think, honestly, many people put too much thought into it, but it is really important, and it also kind of gives you good credibility and a lasting impression, really, because it's sort of your digital footprint. So it can be a bit daunting thinking about your personal brand, especially if you're kind of not sure where you want to go in your career. But I think there's some really good platforms that will help you with that. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to become an influencer or a vlogger. It's just a little thing that you can do to help even start your own kind of portfolio and help you kind of define who you are and what you're looking for as well. So LinkedIn. So that is a big one. And I think, like, I know what it was like as well back at uni. You didn't really put too much thought into LinkedIn, and it's sort of the unknown. But I actually think it is becoming more popular in terms of social media platforms. And it's just as important as your CV, if not more important, because a lot of the time when we present candidates to our clients, we will hyperlink the LinkedIn profile. And sometimes they will click on the LinkedIn profile first. So just the little things in terms of having a profile picture, particularly something that reflects the industry that you want to get into. So you don't necessarily need a graduation photo at uni, but just something even, creative, or just a nice, it doesn't have to be super formal either. I think the industry that we work in, the beauty of that is it's a fun and it's a creative industry. So I think the days of like suit and tie and that sort of thing are out. It's very much, it's more casual, and, be creative with things like Canva. There's really good designs that you can make. You can, design banners that sort of reflect the industry that you're wanting to get into. And it's really important as well to just make sure your profile is full of information. So be really specific in what industry you're looking to get into, the experience you've had so far, the qualifications, your general interests as well. It could be anything. A lot of our clients, when we recruit for junior roles, it's not necessarily about experience, but it's about having a passion for the industry. So they'll often sort of say, what's your favorite brand and why do you want to work in this industry? So little things like that, and even posting to your network about interesting brand campaigns that you've seen can be a really good way of just separating yourself from just hundreds of CVs that just landed in your inbox when you're applying for a role. Building your network is really important too. I think it's it's a bit of a cliche, but it honestly is who you know, and that's just not who's kind of been given to you along the way. It's who you've actively networked with. So it's something that you're in control of and that you can sort of build. So although it can be daunting, it's actually really fun once you get into it. I remember when I was starting out, after I graduated, I was just trying to find an internship, and I ended up doing 2, but I was honestly remember just printing out my CV and running around the city, just trying to like knock on people's doors and just meet with people for coffees. And it wasn't necessarily with an agenda to say hi me, but I just wanted to kind of get to know them and understand what they did for their job. So you'd be surprised that if you do connect with people and you reached out to them, not necessarily, I would always say don't go for the CEOs, maybe people sort of in mid-level positions. They're often really happy just to chat with you about what they do in their everyday job, because at the end of the day, we've all been grads and we've all studied and we know what it's like. So I think, something to note as well, when you do connect with someone on LinkedIn, don't just connect, also click follow, because that way you're subscribing to all their content. You can see what they're sharing, and then that gives you the opportunity to kind of engage with them. And then you'll just start to build general knowledge about the industry as well, and, who's winning what client and the movements that are happening. So we would always say, and we do this ourselves as a business, is to have a general target of 100 people a week. That is actually your limit on LinkedIn. You can't add more than 100 people. So if you do that 100 people a week, every week in the year, which is 52 weeks, that's like 5,000 new contacts. So it does really pay off. And you'd be surprised at the connections that you can make and the people that you meet on LinkedIn. I know social media, like, Instagram and TikTok are really big platforms, and LinkedIn can be used in the same way, honestly, to make connections and meet. So I would start with that as a first step, and then once you're sort of confident, start posting some content. So I think the content that you post, it's really important to remember it's in line with your personal brand and what you want to put out there in terms of who you are as an employee. So, for example, if you're a PR professional, you want to be seen to be in the know of the current news that's happening, current trends. If you're in social media, it could be posting about a new TikTok trend that's gone viral. How did it go viral, and your sort of thoughts of that. So we usually suggest following the 4 pillars, which are educational, relatable, inspiring, and entertaining. So yeah, I mean, we sort of follow a similar thing to our own LinkedIn presence, and it's fun to have a bit of a mix. So, you know, it could be anything from posting a fun meme that you saw. It could be something inspiring in terms of, you know, someone that you might have seen who's managed to turn their internship into a full-time role and now they're director. Or it could be, like I said, playing into your industry. So it's in design as well. Could be a new design tool that's come out. It could be, a new system or font that's really being utilized for a lot of designers. So just try and kind of make sure it's just in line with your brand and your career path as well. So just be a little bit strategic if you can. It does help if you plan out your content too. So try not to just post off a whim. Come into the week and know how many posts that you want to do and start building it that way. If you want to have a look at some of the posts that we do, I have a lot of fun with my posts. I often do like song lyrics and I change them into, you know, things about getting a job. So last week I did a poem about Christmas. So it doesn't have to be like, LinkedIn is not formal anymore. It's, you know, and our industry's fun. So remember, like, if you can be really creative, people will pick up on that, and that's your portfolio right there. So it's not just, you don't necessarily have to write blogs on a website or an outlet. It's, you're creating your own content. So yeah, they're probably some of the main tips on LinkedIn. And yeah, like I said, if you need any help, have a look at, I think everyone at Creative Natives is, we're quite active on LinkedIn. So internships. So this is probably my favorite topic. I'm super passionate about helping students and grads find internships. And there's so many ways to get an internship, even though it feels really daunting and you have no idea where to start. But I think, like we said earlier, the personal brand piece already puts you a step ahead of anyone else. Often people think if there's an internship advertised, there could be 100 CVs just landed in someone's inbox. So as a hiring manager, what they're going to be looking for is who is a little bit different, who's going to stand out to me, and who's showing initiative and a bit of ambition as well. As an example that I like to use back in my day, I had through one of my networking coffees that I used to do, someone suggested to me that I do something a little bit different. So I actually printed out my CV in a plastic sheet and I put a tea bag in there, and I just had at the time it was a PR agency that I really wanted to work for. So I went to their office, just knocked on the door, and I just dropped off my CV, and I had a little post-it note on it. And I just said, I'd love to chat with you about my experience over a cup of tea, and had a little tea bag in there. And then the director at the time was just like, oh, this is amazing. It's like, I've never had this before. It's so nice to see something a bit different and creative. So yeah, that's how I got my first internship, which turned into my first full-time job. So just thinking outside the box, and don't be afraid to be creative and put yourself out there as well.
Quick question that's come up.
Yes.
Can you still do internships if you're not in uni anymore? Like, there's the perception that you need to be a uni student to do an internship.
Yes, no, you definitely can. I mean, using myself as an example again, I actually did 2 full-time internships after uni. I had a bit of a gap year where I travelled and worked a part-time job, but then I decided I was ready, and I actually interned full-time outside of uni. So definitely they should be, most internships are paid now, some are still not. But yeah, it's just very dependent on the company for that one. But if you're in a position to take on an unpaid internship, it can be a really good experience as well. And it's actually, if you've graduated, it's quite easy to then step into a full-time job from that internship rather than having to wait until you graduate. So in terms of where to look for internships, a lot of websites like B&T and Mumbrella advertise them. So they're very much anything in the creative industry. And they often will put out new announcements when businesses win new clients. So if you're a bit savvy, how the industry works and how we work is when our clients win new business, that's when they need to make new hires. So if you keep your radar out for these announcements, it could be something, so-and-so agency has won Nike. You could think, right, then they might be building their team to work on that specific account. So that's when you could be a little bit savvy and connect with the directors that work there. And, we can send this after, just maybe a little message to say congratulations on winning Nike, for example. I'm sure it's a really exciting time for you, and if you need any extra help, I'm actually looking for an internship at the moment, or I'm currently studying, or I recently graduated, and I'd love the opportunity to demonstrate my passion for the industry. And just a small message like that. I wouldn't suggest writing a really lengthy message, because you have to remember that they're really busy. So even it's not necessarily the managing director, like I said, targeting that kind of senior to mid-level people. And I think as well, another big one is uni job boards that you probably would know. So which is obviously if you're still at uni, but sometimes you can, just keep abreast of what's happening there, and they'll often announce internships that come out as well. And just making the most of your network too. So whether it's your uni teachers or lecturers, they often have come from the industry, so they will know people. And I think it's, again, taking the initiative to talk to them and show that you're really interested and motivated. So often they will have industry connections that they can, whether it's just an initial coffee, you're introducing yourself, and when an internship does come up, you'll be front of mind as well.
We have a question, which I've never heard this. What is your stance on entry-level internships requiring 5 years of experience?
Oh, that does not seem right, particularly if it's an internship. Is that in a specific industry that you've had that experience?
Chrissy, it might be easier if you come off mute rather than typing, if that's all right with you.
But generally, yeah, I mean, I think internships, that's probably a red flag, to be honest. I would steer clear of anyone that's asking to have 5 years experience for an internship.
It was for the communications and social media industry.
Okay. Well, yeah, that
doesn't seem right.
Yeah, no. So I would probably steer clear, and yeah, good luck to them with finding the right person. So if we move on, just continue on internships. I guess, it's everybody's dream of turning your internship into a full-time job, which is always what we want when we do internships. There's definitely a lot of, looking back at when I interned, it's very hard, because at the time you might be feeling really overwhelmed and unsure of yourself. But I would just say, just embrace the fact that you're junior. You don't need to come into an internship and expect to be at a certain level. You're there to learn. So my biggest piece of advice would just be a sponge and just soak up everything around you, and ask lots of questions. We have one of the juniors in our team. He's not an intern, but it's sort of his first 2 years of the job. He's super impressive because he's always asking questions, and it's not just to the one person. He will go around the room and ask questions to everybody in the team and just understand how they think. And it really doesn't go unnoticed because it shows that you're actually you're there to learn and you value their opinion. So I think don't be afraid to ask questions. There's no stupid questions when you're starting out. Even something like, yeah, what is this? What is this software tool that you use and why do you use it? And even asking to come along to client meetings just to observe and just sit back. Often you kind of feel, I remember I always felt that, I was just intern and I didn't have much value to give, but you actually, especially in the age that we're living in, you've got a lot of value, particularly in the social media space. You're there and you can understand things that senior people might actually not be up to date with in terms of trends. So just be confident in knowing that you do have a lot to give, and always do what's asked of you. It's just the little things as well, like just make sure you're on time. You do what you say you're going to do, really kind of put focus into your tasks, and just make a bit of an effort to connect with others in the team. Like I said, ask lots of questions, and show initiative is a really big one as well, and something that doesn't go unnoticed too. So anything, if you can go above and beyond in just a small task, it shows that you have a really good quality in you, which is initiative that a lot of employers look for. And as well, don't be afraid at the end of your internship, or if it's approaching the end, ask them, do you think that, is there any opportunity for me to stay on longer? If not, why? Don't be afraid to ask for feedback, constructive feedback. It might purely just be because they don't have the resource, but if you make yourself known that you are there, if they do grow, then they'll have you front of mind again. So, and also a really big one is just enjoy yourself too, because I'll never forget one of my biggest learnings as an intern is that back then I was quite shy and I wasn't sure of myself, and that actually translated. My manager sort of sat me down and just said, we don't really think you're enjoying it here. And they just, for some reason, thought that I didn't want a full-time job, and it was just really misinterpreted. So, and I had to explain, oh, no, I'm loving it. And then in the end, I stayed on long term, but just, and it's hard when you're kind of reserved, but just make it known. If I had have gone back, I would have just said to my direct manager that I'm really loving it, and just be really vocal about how you do want to stay on long term. So, yes, that would be my top tips. And enjoy it as well. It's really fun to kind of just be in a new environment and learn from different people. So the next topic is applications. Cover letters. It's really important to know that, there's no one size fits all for cover letters, and do not use the same cover letter for every job. There's nothing more bland and boring than just seeing like a typical dear hiring manager and actually saying hiring manager, I would like to apply for the position. It's just, I would always encourage going back to the fact that we're in the creative industry, so be really creative. A cover letter doesn't necessarily have to be a templated Word document these days either. I always say to students and grads that I work with, think outside the box. So if you're going for a role in social media, why not do a cover letter in the form of an Instagram post? The post can be about you, or if you're in PR, why don't you write a press release about yourself? We all learned how to do press releases in uni, so it could say, the headline could be, Leah applies for internship at Creative Natives, and then, just be creative, because that's the stuff that stands out, and, it shows that you can think creatively. And you don't have to be a really strong writer either. We've got, ChatGPT these days that can help you just put something together really quickly as well. But obviously, if you are using that, just make sure you proofread it and, it kind of is in your tone of voice as well. Just be specific. So explain what you want. Don't be afraid to show that you're really passionate, and why you're excited to have that opportunity. And really important as well, research the company's values, research the person that you're applying to. So like I said, don't write dear hiring manager, write, dear Leah. So it's really personal, and there's little things like that make a lot of difference. And, you know, it could be little things in terms of research. Like, I saw that you recently won this new client. It seems like you're going through an exciting period of growth in the business, and that's really exciting for me. And yeah, I think the most important thing, and you probably know it at uni as well, is just edit and proofread. You know, everyone's just human to make mistakes, but just make sure, you know, it is, you're presenting yourself on this piece of paper, or if it's a slideshow, it could even be, if it's a design role, you're putting together a mock design. I know it's, obviously you're putting time and effort into it, but, you know, it does pay off in the long run if you can show you can be creative.
If you can't find the hiring manager's name, what would you put?
If you can't find the hiring manager's name, I would just say, dear, using us as an example, dear Creative Natives team. At least it's just showing that, you know, you're not just sending a generic cover letter to 10 different companies. Or if it's a PR internship, you could just say, you know, to the PR team at Creative Natives. So just still trying to find a way to be a little bit specific in who you're reaching out to.
Great.
Any other questions? All good?
Not right now, but I'll interrupt you when they come.
Yes, it's cool. So applications, like I said before, don't be afraid to be creative. Yeah, I think gone are the days of the Word document. Like, there's Canva. If you're on social media, again, think outside the box. So what about TikTok? What about, you know, I know there's these new trends of TikTok CVs coming up. So just have a play around. And I think although it's daunting when you're a graduate, it's also, there's a kind of freedom to know that, you know, you're applying for different jobs and you can be creative. You don't really have anything to lose by putting yourself out there. So have fun with it and just try and be a little bit memorable if you can. I know not everyone likes to put themselves, you know, film themselves. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. It could be a piece of writing. You know, like I said, I like to do lyrical posts or poems or just something a little bit different. So again, it's something to just be mindful of with cover letters as well. Make sure you're not using the same generic template for every role. It does need to be specific, and, you know, depending on the job requirements, you might need to change it up a little bit. So yeah, just make sure that, you know, you're highlighting the correct things in the business and showing that you've done your research. And don't worry as well if you don't have much experience. You know, the companies, apart from the company that asked for 5 years experience, but most internships, they don't expect you to have work experience. But there's definitely transferable skills. So, you know, whether it's you had a part-time job, you dealt with customer-facing roles, there's different challenges in navigating personalities, project management, being on time, could be potentially tech skills, or maybe you have done a little bit of like freelance graphic design work as well. So don't worry if you don't have, you know, experience of a full-time job on your CV, because it's not really expected. And as well, something that's really good to note is utilizing URLs. So yeah, put the link, if you can, embed a link of your LinkedIn profile onto your CV or application letter. That makes it really easy for hiring managers, because they can just click a link to your LinkedIn or click a link directly to your portfolio. Just make sure that the links are working before you send off your CV or cover letter.
We have a question from Chelsea who's going to come onto the mic.
Oh, great.
I just have a question about companies where they have like a process where they will like go through the document. And so in the past, we've been told that you need to optimize it by using Word. Don't do like something on Canva, because it's hard for those programs to read the information, and you might be screened out before they even look at it. So how do we circumnavigate that, or like how do we get around it?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that is definitely a challenge depending on the industry. If you're applying for a big corporate company, often they'll have their talent teams and it's all automated and they screen CVs. But I would say, and sometimes it can be hard, I've done it before, having to have my formal CV and cover letter. But then at the same time, I've also directly reached out to the talent acquisition manager, because at the end of the day, they're just people like me looking at CVs, and if someone reached out directly, I'd remember their name and then I'd look at their application. So you're right in saying sometimes you can't get around the formal process of going through those systems and portals. But I would just say to try and still kind of connect and just separate yourself if you can.
Would you say that like marketing agencies and that kind of stuff is using that tech, or is it more big corporates?
No, so I mean, because we work a lot in the agency space, it's not really common. But if you are going for a tech company or a big corporate, one of the big four, it is common that it's very formalized, and sometimes their grad programs are different to internships. They're quite formal, and they're sort of like a full-time job in themselves. So you might have to go through quite a long interview process. Often they'll have group interviews as well and presentations. So yeah, it depends on the industry.
Great, thank you.
That's all right.
All right, we have a question in the chat. I have experience as a copywriter for radio and a content ideator for digital media, but that experience is in India. I'm now doing a master's in digital media and want to get into image and personal branding with these new skills. So technically I'm, a fresher, but my LinkedIn profile shows a lot of experience. Should I revise my profile to land a fresh job or internship?
So sorry, is the other role that person's going for, is it an internship or a full-time role?
It's just saying land a new job or internship. So either one.
Okay.
Should they be adjusting their previous experience for now?
No, I think yeah, like I said, all the experience you have is valuable. I think if you can just find a way to sort of
Make it
concisely, justify how it transfers into this job. Overseas experience is really valuable, because often, like, Australia is actually behind a lot of countries in terms of the market and what's happening. So I would just probably acknowledge that sometimes they might need, depending on the industry, a lot of the time in PR, they like local experience because it means you've got media contacts who are local. But I don't think you need to discount your experience at all.
Great.
Okay, so job interviews, exciting topic. So yeah, we've got lots of resources on hand in terms of job interviews. So we can share that with you after this. But I would really recommend reading the interview prep pack that we have before you go into any interviews. But I think just the most important thing is just to make a good impression. And I can't stress enough how important it is to be on time to interviews. We've had cases in the past, even senior candidates who've been late to job interviews, and it just does not make a good impression. Depending on the circumstance, obviously sometimes you can't help it, but if that is the case, then call ahead and just show that you're thinking and you're organised. I would usually say arrive at the interview like 10 to 15 minutes early, even if it's like you just wait outside the office and just breathe and just get ready and prepare, but just allow yourself that time. I think it's pretty straightforward, but I guess it's an important thing to note. Dress professionally as well. I know not all industries, sometimes it's more casual, but it's better to be overdressed than underdressed, I would always say. So whether it's just having a blazer on or a nice shirt, hair neat, just little things like that, because it does, first impressions do mean a lot. So I think it's just generally, I know that creative industries can be super casual as well, so it's not necessarily having to wear a blazer, but just presenting yourself in a way that's authentic to you and going back to your personal brand as well. It's just the image that you want to portray to other people and how you want to be seen. In terms of language, body language as well is a really big thing. There's just often little things that you can do to show that you're really engaged. Sitting up straight, don't kind of sit and have your arms crossed. Just be really conscious of that your body language is giving off a certain vibe as well. So smiling, making eye contact is really important. It doesn't have to be, always staring at them in the eyes, but just when you talk and when they talk, you're just showing that you're engaged, and, you know, things like hand gestures and nodding to kind of show them that you're actively listening as well. So if it's a Zoom call as well, sometimes it can be hard to get your vibe across, but similar thing goes, just make sure, you know, your background is, if it's clunky or something, maybe blur it, or just you're in a quiet space, there's no distractions, and that you're kind of, you know, still nodding and actively listening as well. And I think something that's quite important is just being realistic about your salary expectations. I know there's a lot, you know, a lot going around at the moment about, you know, knowing your worth and that sort of thing, but it's also understanding the market that you're interviewing for, and being realistic about that. If you go in with a really high salary, it actually shows that you haven't really done your research on the industry. And I think sometimes, unfortunately, they'll just completely discredit you straight away and just say, you know, that's just completely out of our budget, on to the next person, if they're really busy and interviewing a lot of people. So we have a salary guide. There's a lot of, depending on the industry, there's a lot of salary information out there. Talk to recruiters as well and just get a sense of what kind of your range, what we should be asking for. Just more so to show that you've done your research and you're open to the opportunity. Obviously, if they're trying to pay you nothing, then, you know, that's not a good sign. So just be conscious of those sorts of things as well. And, you know, try and have fun too. They actually are, you know, it's really daunting and nerve-wracking, but once you're in it and you're talking, it's really nice to just get a sense of who they are, and don't be afraid to ask them questions, because, you know, it's your career as well, and you want to be making sure that you're getting a lot out of the internship or job too. So find out about the culture, make sure it's the right culture for you and that you're going to be learning, and, you know, putting it onto them, like, what do you think I can bring to this role? What do you think I'll learn? What do you think some of the challenges will be? And obviously really important to do your research on the company. So there's always the inevitable question, why do you want to work for us? Like, tell us about us. And it can be really daunting if you're like, oh, I've done no research, and, you know, you just try and make something up on the spot. So just, you know, make sure you've got, often companies will have case studies on their websites of recent work. So pull out examples from that and just say, I really like this campaign that you did in September with X client. It looked really fun, and I'd love to get more exposure into the tech industry or something. Or you could just say, if it's a bigger company, I like the fact that you have 100 employees, and I feel like I'm the sort of person that will thrive in a big company. Anything about leadership style, asking them those sorts of questions as well. Any questions on that one?
Not right now, but if anything comes up, I'll let you know.
Yeah. And also, just don't be hard on yourself if you don't get the role. Just think of every interview you're learning something, and it's just good practice to kind of speak, whether it's speaking to a camera or just speaking in person, and just understanding, you know, learning about your body language and being more confident. So yeah, don't be too hard on yourself. It is a bit of a slog sometimes trying to get that first job, but it's all good practice in the end as well. So portfolios. We are of the strong opinion that everybody should have a portfolio. It's not just for people in the graphic design field or creative. I think, almost everybody in the kind of creative umbrella, communications, marketing, social media, and design should have a portfolio, particularly writing. So if you want a job as a copywriter, or even in PR, if you want a job as writing press releases, you actually need to show that you can write. And often companies will ask if you have any samples of your work that they can review, whether it's design or social media posts or content plans, or even just blogs that you might have written. So particularly social media, if you have any reels that you might have done before, and maybe marketing campaigns. It doesn't have to be for a company. It can be uni projects that you've done as well. That's why it's really good, you know, at the time you think of uni assignments as something that you just want to get over and done with, but when you do them, it actually is, important because they go into your portfolio and then it's something that you can speak to. If you're a writer, maybe it's just starting your own personal blog. It doesn't have to be shared with the world, but it's just something, written content that you can show. If you're in PR, you probably have done press releases at uni. So if you have them to show, it's just really to gain an example of your writing and how you structure everything. So we usually say with portfolios, it could either be on a website. A lot of designers have their own websites, which are, they're really easy to kind of create nowadays, or a Canva portfolio link. So they're super easy to update. And people can just obviously click the link and have a read through. So you don't have to send PDFs or links. But yeah, it is, like, I understand when you're starting out, it can be daunting to try and decide what you should actually put in your portfolio. But yeah, anything from uni, I think even reaching out to small businesses, whether it's like a cafe and offering to, take some photos or write a piece on the founder and the coffee that they make, anything, just be really creative. It doesn't have to be a really formal something from a job. Yeah, even if you're kind of in like the photography field, obviously you have photos there. And social media, it can, you don't have to be the next influencer. You could just start a little side blog as just a fun project. And then that way you can say, yeah, this is the content I've created. It's centered around, I think it's important just to have like a theme if you're going to go down that route as well, and not kind of random things. But yeah, I mean, even, we Creative Natives, Leah does a lot of blog writing. So even, reaching out and offering to write something in that sense as well. And yeah, there's a lot of small businesses, you'd be surprised that they actually would like some help if it's even writing social media captions for them. It is, sometimes it is free work. If, you're doing it a couple of hours a week and it's going towards you and your career, it is worthwhile. Any questions on portfolios?
Not right now. Let's move on.
And so networking, yes, it's very nice now to say that after COVID, in-person things are back. And I think a lot of people now are actually enjoying, we're not hiding at home anymore. I think, yeah, we're getting a lot of value out of interaction, human interaction, really. So I think there's a lot of industry groups out there that offer networking events. So I would definitely have a look. And I'm sure at uni, there's a few kind of connections that you might have had there as well. If you sign up to boards like Mumbrella or BNT or Ad News, you'll get notified of upcoming network events. PR Daily is another really good one, and the PRIA if you're in comms, because then you can actually sign up for memberships and just be kept across network opportunities. Even things like startup groups as well, because you can actually go to networking events and you just never know who you'll meet there, and you might get an internship out of those sorts of things. So there's websites as well, like Meetup. So they often have events too. And then again, going back to your uni network, go to your lecturers, your tutes. They'll have a lot of good contacts as well in the industry. So yeah, and I think even if you graduated, they always love to hear from you. So yeah, don't be afraid to just touch base. And again, LinkedIn, when you're building your personal brand, you're doing those 100 contacts a week. Don't be afraid to just send them a short message and just intro yourself. It doesn't necessarily have to be asking for something straight away, but just an introduction to say, thanks so much for connecting. Would love to stay in touch. And then maybe a couple of weeks down the track, you might ask them if you can just spare 10 minutes of their time to pick their brains about what it's like to work in the industry. And I would always say something that's really important is make sure it's convenient for them. So if you're the one that's wanting to catch up with someone, you work around their schedule. So it's really important to meet them at their place of work. Just little things like that. Make sure you buy them the coffee. If they insist on it, make sure you send a thank you follow-up to thank them for their time. It's just little things like that yeah, they do go a long way and people do remember you. So if you make that good impression, just make it easy for them, because, if they can spare half an hour out of their day, if someone's meeting me at my office for a coffee, it's not much to ask for. So it's kind of when you have to, you're hard to work around in terms of times and you want them to go out of their way. It's when people will probably be less available. So just have that in the back of your mind as well. And also industry forums. So a lot of the time they'll host live events as well and webinars. And they're just a really good space to kind of engage with people and learn different things as well.
So we have a question, not about networking, but so how would you go about reaching local businesses or influencers to help create social media content for free to gain experience, like you were talking about previously?
Yep. Always try and go in person if you can. So if it's a small local business, I'm using the coffee shop as an example, but a local coffee shop, go in and have a chat with them and just say, I'm a social media grad, I'm building my portfolio. Do you have social media presence? Do you need any support in that way? There's often a lot of small businesses around, like even kind of like small real estate agencies. I think it is better to try and do it in person if you can, because often if it's just in an email, it can get lost and it's not always a priority. And what was the other part to the question?
Reaching local businesses or influencers.
Influencers. I mean, sometimes that can be a bit of a challenge depending on the status of the influencer. I assume they probably get a lot of inquiries if they're, got a lot of followers, but sometimes they'll have managers. If not, even looking at micro influencers is a really good way. So people that have, just a few hundred, a few thousand followers, because often, they would be happy to have the help if you offered to write some captions for them or take photos or help out with designs, or even if it's writing a blog piece for them on the blog. Different ways. But I think try and do it in person if you can, and if not, then maybe LinkedIn is a good way. I think sometimes emails can get lost. Like people are quite busy, so if you're adding to the email, it just might get lost in the inbox. So try and just get their attention in person or message on LinkedIn maybe.
That seems to be it. We don't really have any more questions, but we will send out a recording of this and some of the resources that we have mentioned throughout the presentation, either today or later tomorrow. So please keep an eye out for that. And this was our last session of the year, so lucky last.
Thanks you all for coming. And if you have any questions, like Leah said, let us know. But if you're on your journey, good luck with everything. And like I said, try and have fun because it's an exciting time.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.